Today, I'm going to install a brand new heater core for a 2003 Nissan Xterra. The first thing I did last night was drain the radiator fluid. There's plenty of videos online on YouTube on how to do that, but I did discard all the fluid. And I also last night disconnected heater core pipes. There's two there and they need to be disconnected. So it's just a clamp, and hopefully you're not going to break off the notorious brittle tubes for the heater core. And I also lubricated with PB Blaster these AC pipes. I duct taped them off to try to minimize the amount of condensation in the system. So I don't know if you want to do that or not, but that's what I did. You're going to need a 17 and a 19 on the lower nut of the AC. And I have an adjustable wrench and a 24 millimeter for the top nut of the AC. These tubes, what I'm talking about, okay? I would recommend having a couple rags on hand when you do take the heater core out. It will still have fluid in it and it will be leaking. You can see from here, I already took the air handler out. There's videos on how to do that, so I'm gonna skip that part. I managed to get this bracket off. There are two nuts on the inside. Let me see if I can get this camera angle here. Oh, sorry about that. You'll see the holes there. These two holes. That's a 10 millimeter nut that you can use a short socket to remove that. I do recommend having some kind of gloves that grip and to help so you don't lose them in anywhere. You also have a tab. Everybody talks about this black tab that's on the housing of the heater core. I can get in there. And I used a razor knife to trim that off. And then I needed a flathead screwdriver to pry up on the bottom because it fits in there exactly. So that's how it looks right now. I'm ready to put the new one in. It sits in back here behind this. All I did as far as removing the dash components, you'll see this popped out from behind here. I removed the radio display and bumped up the shifter cover plate and just laid that aside for now. I'll reconnect that later. This is the brand new heater core that I got. It's a OEM. I wanted to not have an issue with putting it back in or a size difference. So what I'm doing is I'm leaving the top two screws in place, backing them out as far as I can, because with the tubes in place, it's basically impossible to get behind this air handler box. So we're gonna do this, and hopefully the assembly of the tubes will be much easier. Make sure you use a rag and clean out any debris or leftover radiator fluid that may be sitting on this plastic below. I'm gonna put this back in place. Make sure you have the top and the bottom situated correctly. And you can see it's almost in where it needs to go. Kind of give it a really good push here. I think we're just about in where we need to be. Okay, so let's try and get the tubes back on. Just want to say, if you have a nice mirror like this, you can kind of use this a lot to make sure that you have it in place. I did give it extra pushes to get the base of it past where I cut to make sure it's in there. And then this helps very much when you want to see your screws and see your positioning. There is a difference between the top tube and the bottom tube. Slightly different angle. Just make sure that you find the washer that comes with it. Make sure that's in. The washer is identical on both sides. So, you know, just make sure that that goes in place here. And you don't lose that. Okay, I spent a lot of time trying to get that top one in. I tried taking the screws out, leaving the top ones in. It just would never line up. And then I come to find out that maybe it's because I can't get the right angle because those rubber grommets are there, you know. So I removed them. So that is the only way I could get that top tube to line up, and hopefully now this will go much faster. I can easily put those grommets back in. See, now I was able to get that rubber firewall grommet back in with a little help from a screwdriver on the other side. I'll show you real quick. There, see? And then just, you gotta kind of work your way around very gently so you don't ruin. This is just dirt, but it's not cut or anything. And you know, make sure it's flush. Now it's ready to accept and hose back again. So I'll do the same thing for the bottom one. Now make sure you have your rubber washer in there, and you'll see these little tabs. Whoop, there it goes. But you'll see that, and that has to be lined up in these little grooves. I always start the screw by hand, just to get you have to use your fingers, just to get it started. And you see, it's so much easier. I'm already so much further along than I was. So definitely take those rubber grommets out. The toughest screw to get was that top one, but this gives a little bit, so don't be afraid to push up on that to get a better angle on that screw up there on that top corner. Okay, so this is what this rubber grommet looks like. The cone shape goes in first, and you just slide this right over the hose opening, and then all you have to do is get this groove to be accepted by the firewall. All right, and then should lay flush against the firewall. So I just use a screwdriver a little bit because my hands aren't that strong, but you can use this flathead screwdriver and kind of press in gently, and you'll hear it kind of snap into place. And again, you want to make sure it's flat all the way around against the firewall. Now, ready to reconnect your hoses at this point. They're tightened up and secure. Try to keep the heads of the clamps in a position where you can easily reach them if you need to. Now you can see the rubber grommets are in place, the new heater core is in place, and all the screws have been tightened securely. This is the air handler box that I pulled out and struggled with. To be honest, you have to make sure that this plastic part goes in that hole right there on a reassembly, and everything lines up. Also, this is a fragile connector, so put that aside, out of the way, until you know you've got it through everything. Well, going back in was a lot easier than taking it out, probably because I observed everything I did. There is a cable here that I had to get out of the way of this thing, so be aware of that. Remember how that goes. Check your connections. This is what this connector is going to go to eventually. Also lining up the box where the existing holes are. All these foam insulating, you want to make sure that that is a nice tight fit around, and you know, you got your holes lined up, and you have your little plastic, and you can't see it now, but it is in that little odd shaped round hole. That's good. And I think we're good to go. We're getting there. All the foam is nice and flush. That's just insulating to keep the dirt and debris out of that. I put the 4 gold colored screws. They were gold for me. There's 2 on each side of this box. Top one is here, and the bottom one, you have to go in way down there. I don't know if you can see it now. There it is. You see that? That's where that is. I wanted to show you how this connects here. There's a groove, and it connects to the top here. And there's also a groove here that slides in. So when you take it apart, if you pull it, you'll see that little groove there. And then this grabs hold of this piece, and it snaps together like a puzzle. So, see, nice and easy. When you get your air handler box in, make sure you look at your grommets, your rubber grommets that came through. Mine popped off, and that's the same kind of cone shape. They are connected. I want to tell you, there is a little rubber connection here, so they stay together. But just take your time, push them back in, flush against the firewall, very similar to the heater core tube firewall grommets, and just, you know, work your way around and press it till it's flush, and they'll be ready to be reconnected. So I started with the bottom one, and remember it's a 17 millimeter for the back, and you just hold that, and you're actually tightening the front nut with a 19 millimeter. There are O-rings. You just want to make sure you push that in tight, and then start with hand tightening. This is the same configuration as the bottom one, where this nut is to hold and this is to tighten. I also removed this 10 millimeter screw just to make it easy to pull out of the way this AC line. The one in the back is the 24 millimeter against the firewall. You'll need an adjustable wrench for the front nut. The 10 millimeter screw is now tight and secure. So these are the 2 screws or bolts that you'll be putting the L bracket back in place. This is important for the glove box, but in order to get the air handler out, it needs to be removed. So this L bracket, if you have access, once you remove the front of your dash here, these are the 2 10 millimeter bolts that you need to remove to get that L bracket out. And remember, over that groove helps to release it, and you can line up your holes and easily put them back in place. Once I snapped everything back in place and the groove is in correctly, I have not tightened down these 10mm bolts yet. I wanted to show you that it's important to wiggle the L bracket and get that screw hole lined up to receive the glove box correctly. And you can remount this screw as well. It's just regular Phillips that goes in there. Just so you know which screws I've removed. This one, this with the radio, and that one down there. And then the two 10mm for the L bracket. Remove this one here. And then this from the glove box. Up top. And there's all these screws up here for the latch. I had a screw up here and a screw down there. Here is my glove box. I kept the screws inside and the latch for it. When you mount your glove box, there is a little plastic nub on this bottom corner that will receive the glove box directly so it lines up. You can see that there. Make sure you do that first before you put everything back, and then you can reconnect your screws. Everything's back together. There's two screws. Don't forget to put them back in. Don't forget to tuck this in under the top. Make sure the sides are all cleaned out and smooth and fit nicely. Glove box is back in. The heat is incredible. It's really feeling very good. I'll be good this winter.